Hello, my name is Steve Mullins, and the title of today's video is Mold and the Landlord's Obligation in California. And I notice this thing on my shoulder, that's my parrot, Pearl. She sometimes might appear in and out. Anyway, I do need to make clear that I'm not a lawyer, nor am I a medical professional. So any statements regarding law or possible medical conditions are simply for informational purposes only and are a result of my experience in the industry. Now, on this, we're on this particular title about the landlord's obligation in California and mold. Back in 2015, Senate Bill 655, or California Senate Bill 655, was passed in 2015 that requires property owners to maintain their property free from dampness and mold. And it went into effect in January of 2016. Now, what does that mean exactly? Well, dampness will cause mold and bacteria to grow. When you have elevated moisture or dampness, then should be there in your home or office. Now, it is important to note that mold in California Senate Bill 655 is defined as microorganisms or fungi. Now, fungi, of course, is another word for mold. Now, the point is both of them start out microscopic, and of course microorganisms include other things besides mold or fungi, but also dangerous bacteria that grows alongside of it in most cases. And so it doesn't necessarily refer to visible mold. And so that's an important point to be aware of. Now let's take an example here about a landlord's obligation. Obviously, it does not extend to the tenant's obligation to maintain the property while they're living there, meaning the tenant needs to clean up after themselves and not let mold grow due to maintaining, or not maintaining, I should say, good house hygiene. And if they do let it grow, then you can even be liable for that growth, especially if it causes property damage. Now let's use another example that as a tenant you find a leak in the property somewhere. You let the property owner know, hey, there's a leak. You let them know about it. And obviously it is their obligation to come and fix or repair that leak. Now let's say the homeowner, or the landlord if you will, has this leak repaired. Is that all there is to do in this case? Certainly not. You see, depending on when you discover that leak, it likely has absorbed, meaning moisture or water has absorbed into the surrounding building materials without you necessarily noticing it or realizing it. And so the landlord's obligation is to be diligent and make sure there's no dampness or wetness there. Because if you have any dampness or wetness, then mold and bad bacteria will grow. It's a scientific fact. Now, the landlord themselves are not qualified to determine if there's wetness there just by, oh, it looks dry to me, or they put their hand on it and touch it, oh, it feels dry to me, and then just walk off. They need to hire a company that can come in with the right equipment and that is certified and trained to do this to verify there either is or isn't any moisture. Now, let's say at this point, though, the landlord appears not to be doing anything because they think it's dry. Especially the repair person they may send out may also say, it could be a plumber, it could be a handyman, and they repair the leak. And they say everything looks okay, it appears to be dry, so we're not going to need to do anything else about it. However, that's not really the case necessarily, as I just said. You see, mold starts to grow in 1 to 2 days after getting a moisture source. And at the same time, right after that, bacteria, dangerous bacteria, will start to grow within 3 to 5 days of getting a water source. Now, that's considered a health hazard per the CDC, and is at that point what we call gray water or category 2 water, as bacteria has started to grow. Now, just to let you know, category 1 water is considered clean water, such as may come out of your tap, if you want to consider that clean. Now, if you go to, say, a couple days later, in as little as 2 days later after the 3 to 5 day initial moisture period where bacteria will start to grow, then it can degrade into what we call category 3 water or black water due to the more dangerous and acute bacteria growth and the pathogens that go along with it. And just to let you know, that's the same category that is category 3 or black water, that comes out of your toilet every time you flush it. Now that's how serious this is if it's not addressed properly and promptly. Now, let's say this is a point they don't appear to be doing anything, they're not going to check or bring a professional in to verify there's no moisture. What can you do at this point? Well, you certainly have the right to live in a safe place. And you can and should hire someone to inspect these affected areas for potential moisture and mold issues. Now, I say that because this is a particular type of inspection that not every inspector does. And you want to make sure you get the right inspector for it. Now, it's quite possible and even likely that by the time you bring an inspector out, mold and bacteria have already started growing. But let's say they go in, they inspect the areas, they find some moisture, and they say, yes, here's some moisture, you do need to have some work done. A remediation is required at this point. Now, at this point, what you do is you take that report that they send to you, normally in a PDF format, and you give it to your landlord and let them know, hey, here's some moisture and potential mold. This needs to be addressed. Now, the landlord just can't simply dismiss the report and say, well, I don't believe it, because it is done by a certified professional who is in the industry. Now, you want to communicate your concerns to the landlord, do it in an amicable way as much as possible. And by the way, in California, since the landlord was already aware of this particular situation but failed to perhaps correct it totally, they may have repaired the leak, but they didn't verify there's no moisture and they didn't get it dried out or potentially remediated professionally, then you're within your rights to get a rent credit from your landlord in this situation, as per the Renters' Rights of California. You simply attach the invoice of what you paid for the inspection and or testing to your rent check and give it to your landlord and just deduct it from your rent. Now, they may not like that, but by law, you are due a credit for that. Now, continuing on, let's say you give them the report. Excuse me, my bird is affecting my typing over here. At this point, they're not going to do anything. They've made that clear, or they're silent, or they're just simply ignoring the report. How do you address the landlord at that point to make sure you have a safe place to live? Well, there's a couple things you can do. Now, one of them is that you need a different kind of assistance at this point, which I'm not qualified to give. But I do have a PDF I can send you. Just simply click the link, fill out your email address, and I'll send that to you as quickly as possible. And then that PDF will help you address your landlord in this situation at that point. There's also the Building Code Enforcement Department of the city in which you live. You can actually send that report to, because when they get that kind of report from a certified professional, and there's recommendations in that report that say certain things need to be done, then that can actually put further pressure on the landlord to get it done, because now you've notified a public agency that there's an issue. However, you still may have an issue, and that's why I'm going to send you the PDF if you send your email to me. Well, you see, where are we at this point? Well, we're basically at the end of the information on this particular video. Check back for more information. Look at the other videos that are present. They may well answer the questions you have. And tune in for more videos later about related matters. Thanks for tuning in.